What better way to start the iconic albums of the 1980s series than with Queen? Queen is by far my favorite band, and I think that I would absolutely consider The Game to be a very iconic album. I think it's the perfect album to launch this series because it really is one of the first great albums of the 1980s. It was released in 1980, and it really was a great taste of the wonderful music that the decade would bring. Welcome back to Pixel Positive Music, where we are covering iconic albums of the 1980s. This week, we're talking about The Game, the 1980 album by Queen. If you're interested, make sure you definitely hit that subscribe button so you can join a growing community of awesome supporters where we can just come together and talk about music that we love. So, let's get into it. I knew when I launched this series that Queen was going to be where I had to start. Queen is my favorite band. They mean so much to me. I hold them very close to my heart. They've got me through some very hard times. And I mean, they're just one of the greatest rock bands of all time. They have had such a career. Freddie Mercury is one of the greatest singers and performers of all time, and one of the greatest songwriters ever. Brian May is one of the best guitarists out there, and again, one of the best songwriters. Roger Taylor on drums, incredible drummer, great singer, amazing songwriter, and then John Deacon on bass. He's a great bass player, and again, a great songwriter. That's the interesting thing about Queen. They wrote their songs individually, so that's why you have so many different sounds. That's why the same band that can put out Bohemian Rhapsody can also put out We Will Rock You, Somebody to Love, Don't Stop Me Now, Under Pressure, Another One Bites the Dust, Radio Gaga. So many tracks. But today, for this iconic albums of the 1980s, this is going to be the first album we're covering. We are going to cover The Game. So The Game is Queen's eighth album, came out in 1980, marks a big shift for Queen in their career. Before this album, Queen was very much no synthesizers. They were very much opposed to using synthesizers in any way. It was very clearly and plainly marked on every album, no synthesizers. They still were able to create some very unique sounds. John Deacon developed an amp, the Deaky amp, and then, of course, Brian May with the Red Special guitar, which he built with his father, was able to create all kinds of incredible effects, especially if you go on their Night at the Opera album, listen to the song Good Company. Brian May was able to create some incredible sounds with his guitar. But it was the 80s. Things changed. They had a new producer, Reinhard Mack, and they decided to go with some synthesizers, and that's actually how this album opens. The game opens with Play the Game. Starts with a wall of synthesizers, right out of the gate. This is a new sound for Queen. So Play the Game is a great mid-tempo track. It starts off as like a piano ballad. After that wall of synthesizers, you get Freddie on the piano, singing a great vocal, and then the rest of the band comes in, and you get a great classic Queen track. But why is this album iconic? Well, it really established Queen, I think, as a global band. They were already pretty famous worldwide by this point in their career. Queen's first album came out in 1973, just for some context. They kind of struck big in 74 with the first in the UK with Seven Seas of Rye, and then Killer Queen. And then they really hit big with Bohemian Rhapsody in 1975. But they were still pretty European. They're from the UK, obviously. They're very popular in Europe. They kind of found some success in the United States with like We'll Rock You, We're the Champions, some stuff like that. But for me, I really think it was The Game that really established Queen as a global band. Why? The two big singles. So we have the track listing here. I actually have this. This is an original pressing of the album. We've got, you can probably see the two big heavy hitters here. Another One Bites the Dust and Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Save Me was also a pretty decent sized hit. It's a well known track among fans. And then, of course, Play the Game was a mild success in the UK. And Need Your Loving Tonight was also released as a single in some regions. Dragon Attack is also a notable track. It was very popular live. The band played it live all the time. They still do. But this album introduced a completely new style for Queen, mostly with that big track, Another One Bites the Dust. I mean, it's such an iconic song. It's so catchy. It's so well known. That bass riff is just so prominent and well known. I mean, just listen to this. That comes on, you know what song this is. It's Another One Bites the Dust. It's iconic, it's catchy, it's funky, and it really represents a turning point where we see funk music kind of cross into bigger genres. You start to see the beginning of like funk rock. At this point, funk was a predominantly African American genre, and I think that's what contributes to the success of this song in the United States. This is just one of 2 Queen tracks that hit #1 in the United States, and by some metrics is considered to be the most successful Queen single, with over 7 million units sold on its own. You get the iconic bass line, the skeletal guitars from Brian, the amazing vocals from Freddie. He starts off quiet and low, and then he just really belts it out throughout the song and the choruses. What more is there to say? Another One Bites the Dust is simply iconic. It's a juggernaut of a song, and it really, really changed the sound of the band, but not entirely, because that's the great thing about Queen. They kind of go back and forth. They change up their sound all the time, and that's evidenced with the actual earlier single from the game, and the other big hit from this album, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Crazy Little Thing Called Love is another major hit. It's #1 in the United States. I'm sure you know this one too. This is like a rockabilly track that Freddie Mercury himself wrote as a tribute to Elvis Presley and Cliff Richard. And it's phenomenal. It sounds like an Elvis Presley song. It starts off with that acoustic guitar. Freddie is singing in a much lower, like Elvis Presley sounding vocal. And it was the first time Freddie played guitar with the band. And, this is such a catchy track. And most of the song was just recorded with Freddie Mercury, bassist John Deacon, drummer Roger Taylor. They did not add Brian May until the guitar solo. And fun fact, Freddie allegedly, according to Roger Taylor in an interview, wrote this song while he was in the bath. So it, makes sense. Absolutely iconic track. One of the band's biggest hits, one of the most well-known tracks from the band, still performed live all the time. It was always performed live for the rest of their time until they stopped touring in '86. Huge hit. I mentioned earlier, Save Me that's the song that closes the album. It's a ballad written by Brian May. It was written, actually, according to Brian May, it was written about Freddie and a relationship that was ending. And, it's a typical Queen song. It's got the great opening piano, it's got soaring vocals, it's got a wonderful chorus, it's so catchy, a killer guitar solo. That one was a modest hit in the United Kingdom, and it peaked at #11 on the charts. And then Play the Game, which I already talked about, peaked at #14 on the charts. So I think, The Game is absolutely an iconic album for the 1980s. I love Queen, and I love most of Queen's work, pretty much all of their work, and it was kind of hard to choose which Queen album to do first for the 1980s, because, spoiler alert, this will not be the last Queen album we cover in this series. But I think The Game is the best choice to start it. It came out in 1980. It completely set the tone for the decade for music, and it's a great album. It holds up so well. You can sit down today, listen to this album from start to finish. You will have a blast. The music is still very recognizable today, especially Another One Bites the Dust. It's a very recognizable track. I think that without a doubt, the game has withstood the test of time. But those are my thoughts. I'm gonna be doing probably another like a deep dive on a couple of the tracks, maybe some of the deep cuts. Sail Away, Sweet Sister is a beautiful track that does not get enough love, so maybe I'll take a look at that one. But what do you guys think? Is The Game by Queen an iconic album in your mind? Do you think that it's a good album? Do you think it's a bad album? Um, I want to know what you guys think. Absolutely love the comments. I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear your thoughts. I also want suggestions on what you think we should cover going forward in this series. I'm absolutely open for ideas, so I definitely want to hear about it. If you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. It helps us get noticed. And please hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps the channel grow, helps us grow an amazing community full of music lovers. And, I would love to have you. I'm sure everyone would. So I will see you guys at the next video.